Welcome to another incredible personal SEO consultation session. I am Diana, the social media and community manager for the SEO unit here at SEMrush, in case you are confused about who is hosting us today. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to learn with us and learn from other fellow marketers. We hope you all are staying safe and healthy. So today we have three, maybe hopefully four, who might be joining us here in a minute, incredible marketers and business owners ready to learn more about kind of the SEO and website issues that they are currently tackling. But fear not, friends, they will have one of the leading voices in the SEO industry to point them in the right direction, because joining me here in the webinar room, providing guidance and reassurance, is someone very, very familiar to the SEMrush webinar scene. She's often the host, but today we're putting her in the hot seat. She is the SEO Team Director for Roast with over a decade of experience in the field. Please welcome fellow Woman in Tech SEO member, Paige Hobart. Hello, lovely.
Hi, thank you, Diana. What a great
intro. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Very excited.
Yes.
This is the most challenging format for any SEO, so it's going to be interesting to see what I say.
I think it's interesting to hear what anybody ever says. But I love being on this end of the camera and you're over there. So I'm taking your place for today, and you get to be full of answers, which I know you will be. And I have a quick question for you, to kind of put you on the spot real quick. Do you and Team Roast have any theories about why Google pushed their page experience rollout to June?
Oh, absolutely. Nobody was ready.
Oh, but we've only had like a year's worth of advance notice.
Yeah. How much do you think we can do in a year?
I know, it's just Google.
The bane of every SEO is that we can give recommendations until we're blue in the face, but unless anyone does them, it doesn't help.
Or unless Google changes something last minute.
That as well, definitely.
That was interesting. That was interesting news. Okay, so also joining us in the live chat is a fresh voice to our personal SEO consultation webinars, Alessia. So she is an entrepreneur, an SEO entrepreneur. So say hi to Alessia in the chat, and don't hold back with your questions because she is there for a reason. All right, now let's meet our marketers and business owners, shall we? Take just a moment to introduce yourselves and your websites, and we are going to start with Steve.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Starzyk, and I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I do kind of digital marketing, design, front-end development, and kind of handle a lot of IT work for financialpoise.com and dailydac.com. It's a lot of finance, investing, bankruptcy, content, webinars, educational materials, and things like that.
Very nice. Education is huge right now. I think it's fantastic to expand on that industry in a time where we're just now used to learning online. Mm-hmm. So very cool. Thanks, Steve. Okay, Yura, do you want to go ahead?
Yep, thanks. Mm-hmm. So my name is Yura Troyan, and I work for Sellberry.com site. It's a niche in SaaS industry. And I am an SEO content manager. So just keeping content strategy, implementation, and looking for the visitors and attracting you and more and more visitors.
I think all of our titles should be that elaborate and elegantly said. Well said. You're very well said. I think that captures everything that SEOs end up getting their hands on. So great job. Yeah. All right, and Paul, you're up.
My name's Paul Hogden. I've got a website. I do web design as part of my day job. I want to become my own customer. That's my ultimate goal by having authority in affiliate sites. And I've just dipped my toe in over the past 6 months with my new site.
Very cool. So not your own boss, but your own customer. That's a first.
Exactly. Yeah, kind of being both.
Very great. And great. Now joining us too is our fourth guest, David. So David, we were just going through our quick introductions. If you want to say hi, who you are, and what your website is about.
Hello. So I'm David from Switzerland. We are here working on Thai massage activity. We are really happy to take the challenge over the competitors of the area. And thanks a lot for welcoming me.
Good. No, I'm glad you can make it. Thank you for being here too. Okay, so before we start, I'm just going to mention that each person will have about 10 minutes to chat with Paige. I am the keeper of the time, so just keep your eyes on me. I'll give you lovely hand gestures and the peace sign when you have your 2-minute warning. But if you go over, I will politely or not interrupt. So just keep your eyes on me. And if we have time at the end, we can circle back or maybe answer some questions from the chat. So not a whole lot of pressure, but always good conversations come out of this. So it's always hard to cut off. So just watch for the hand sign. All right, so now comes the fun part. I'm going to pull up my alarm. And Yura, why don't you kick us off?
Okay. So if I heard you correctly, so that's my turn. Yep. Yeah. So the question is, first of all, what are your favorite techniques or maybe secret methods of optimization of old articles? For example, like to keep them back into ranking or to resurrect them and keep bringing the traffic and keep on being on the first page, please, SERP result.
Nice. I think the first thing we're going to have to look into and dig into is why isn't it doing as well anymore? What's happened to that page for it to have ever dropped out? Because there's obviously evergreen content that should continue to do well forever and ever. So have you released any content that might be competing with it? Have new competitors come on the market that might be outranking you? There's loads of other reasons why that piece of content might not be performing that well. But in terms of kind of my secret method, I love the pillar and cluster technique when it comes to content. And I think I'm going to mention this to a couple of you other guys as well. This is all around having like a central hub of content that you can hang other pieces of content off of. So I really liked your software as a service website, and you offer kind of a service that plugs the CMS into things like the Amazon marketplace, the eBay marketplace, things like that. So I thought having like an Amazon pillar page where you talk about all these different very niche topics around that, but separate to you've got like a salesy Amazon page where you talk about what your product does, something separate to that, something that's all about content and isn't focused on your users. It's focused on educating anyone and being there and being helpful. So I think that would be a really nice strategy to start to think about, just pushing those EAT factors as well, those expertise, authority, and trust. You're an expert in these marketplaces. So start building out that content that shouts, I'm the expert in this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. So can I add a little, some very small question to this? What about content gap optimization, maybe? Does it work well if, for example, the content is outdated a little bit, and I'm adding some new pieces that are missing compared to the first places, compared to the competitors? Yep.
Yeah. Content gap is something that every SEO and content provider has to do. We have to see, okay, there's search volume for this query. I love looking at things like PAAs, people also ask boxes, and other SERP features to say, okay, what are users asking? What questions are out there right now? And looking at what your competitors are publishing. So there's always a place for content gap analysis. When there has to be a decision made as to whether that is a timely piece of content that is absolutely fine. Timely content has its place. It isn't necessarily keyword optimization, which is a conversation I've had with multiple clients over the years as well. You have your nice evergreen pages. You can have evergreen clusters. You can have evergreen pillars, depending on what kind of content you're pushing out there. But that timely content, it will be a flash in the pan because it's talking about something that's happening right now, and it might not be relevant in 6 months. That's still okay. That still says, I have an opinion on this thing that's happening right now because I'm an expert in this field. That's why I love to have on any website a blog area and a resources area that are separate. So then it helps you mentally think resources are evergreen, blog is timely.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. So, and well, as for my site, our site, do you have some general suggestions on what to include or what to emphasize in our content strategy, meaning blog posts, namely?
Yeah, again, I think it's all around that. I really do love the pillar and cluster kind of approach to things. I think you've got a load of good content, and I think your tool looks super powerful as well. The Salisbury tool looks very exciting. And I did send that to people in my team to be like, oh, this is interesting. But I really want to see more content that isn't about the tool, that's just there to help out, that's just there to have an opinion on marketing on Amazon. And you're talking about these things because you're the expert in that field. I do also think that focusing on one marketplace at a time in maybe like a quarterly focus might be really good to really push. I know I keep mentioning Amazon, but really push Amazon for a quarter and then move on to eBay and then move on to Magento, for example, I saw as a CMS that you talk about plugging in. So really having that strong focus, and also making sure that the content, the evergreen content that you're creating, I love a data hook. If you have any data hooks that you can include that other publishers will want to link to and talk about, even better. And it just proves that you're an expert in that because you've produced something that other people care about too.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks a lot. And I have one more question as for landing pages. So I'm kind of dealing more with blog content. What about landing pages? Paige, do you think that long reads, so a lot of text for the landing pages, plays a little bit of very resulting roles? Or does it have to be structured cool, and does it have to be presented well, and does it have to be short, precise, and exact? And that's it.
Oh, all of the above? Both? Everything? It depends. I know we're only 12 minutes in and I've said the word it depends. I've tell myself off.
I mean, does it have to be a long read to be ranking?
No.
No.
What you need to make sure, and the biggest tip I can give to anyone looking to improve their SEO, is look at who's in position 1. Like position 1, 2, and 3. They're the people that Google have said are doing a good job. Kind of just copy what they're doing and improve upon it. Like SEO is the biggest secret in SEO is you just look at who's doing well and you try and do better than them because it's all there. You're just trying to market yourself to a robot. So it really doesn't have to be endless text. It needs to be user friendly. Like if you need to get through some really difficult concepts, chunking that out can be really good. I love to use the PAA questions in a long form article as your headers because they're just really helpful for search engines and people to understand. You can also then use things like FAQ page or question answer schema to mark that up and potentially get a featured snippet or an FAQs drop down on your listing. So it really doesn't have to be long, as long as it serves the purpose of that page.
Okay, I see. Yeah, thanks a lot.
No worries. Diana, did we do that within time?
Wow. Yes, you have 2 minutes to go. And I'm going to use those 2 minutes to add on to something because I have a comment. Going back to Yura's discussion around like keyword gap analysis, or not keyword, content gap analysis and looking for more content ideas. And I love the suggestion of using People Also Ask, but SEMrush does have a really awesome topic research tool that does list out like the top questions that are being searched around your seed keyword, your primary keyword, the subject matter, and it'll also list out like the headlines that already exist. So that way, as Paige said, see what's already ranking and then make it yours and unique. You can see what headlines are already out there, what those content pieces look like, and what people are asking. Meld the two, and there's your next piece of content for you.
Yeah, use SEMrush.
And I know it is a biased answer, but I used it when I was working on websites myself, and that was just one of my favorite tools. So I'm really passionate about that particular tool, just because I got so much SEO benefit from it when I was doing it for my clients. So that one's coming from experience.
Yeah. And from experience, always make sure you're not producing content that's going to compete with content you already have.
Cannibalization, content cannibalization. Yes. There's a tool for that in SEMrush too, by the way. Okay, so we're going to restart my timer and give the screen time to Paul.
Whoops, fantastic. Hi, you've had a look at my website, and basically what it was originally was an e-commerce store, and I was getting about 5 to 10 orders through, but I was paying for every single order. So that just didn't really work for me. So I decided that I was going to repurpose the site, and I was going to make it into an authority site. So that's kind of, where we're sort of starting from. So we had some quite good blog content and stuff like that. But the issue that I've got really is that we're sort of ranking kind of mid-table, kind of about sort of 40s and 50s, and we're just not getting the traction or sufficient traction to start to get more organic visitors. So I'm sort of looking. I've tried the pillar post thing, so I've got a couple of items that we've really invested heavily in content, 6,000 word articles and things like that. What am I doing wrong? Where am I going wrong? It's really what could you recommend?
Yeah. And looking at your site, there is some great content on there. Like I found the top 10 best Moses basket mattresses is perfect of what it's doing. It's an affiliate page. You've got your lists there. You've got a link out, and I think it's on page 1 as well, from what I could tell. So that's a nice bit of content. I think the biggest piece of advice I could give for this website is think about what your USP is. You're in a hugely competitive market. Like looking at that, how often should I bathe my baby? Like you've got the NHS, you've got Mumsnet. That is a hugely competitive landscape right there. I think take a step back and go, okay, if we're not selling products anymore, what do I want this website to achieve? And why should people care? Why should people go to my website for this advice? Similar to Yura, it's those EAT factors. It's why should Google pick you over anyone else? It can clearly see that you're doing good content for those top 10s like that. Your on-page optimization there looks absolutely great. But yeah, really knuckle down and think about, okay, where can I get cut through? Where can I compete? Because it might not be on those 6,000 word articles, because the NHS is there. You ain't going to topple them. They're pretty.
I can try.
Topple the NHS.
That's right.
They're weak right now.
They're busy with other things. I reckon I can get in there if only I can get the right help. Okay, well that's good. And I guess the other thing is what would you give for advice as to kind of taking that and then finding other subjects that I should go to? So you sort of said don't go for the obvious stuff because everybody's there. So how should I be finding where to get or what my next bit of content should be and building out the site that way? Yeah.
So again, you started off as a store, so there's some footer links to product pages that don't exist anymore. It's a website kind of in progress. It's trying to figure out what it is. Once you understand what your angle is, what your USP, your expertise is, really start looking for keywords in that. So do your keyword research, look at those queries, and think about what's your opinion? Why should people come to your website? I can't stress enough the amount of websites that are out there in the web that they have no USP. And then people go, well, why am I on page 2? Well, because every website on this page is either super authoritative, they do this expertly, they do that, they offer these products. I think as well, the other thing that you could have content on is, although you don't want to sell those products anymore because it costs you money, you can still have like product pages that just link through to the affiliate site. I did not quite these up myself as a side project, just to create a product page, but instead the buy now just sends you off to that affiliate link, and that means you can have you can still have that product section. You could have product pages, product categories, and build out all of that product content without the need to have to actually fulfill that yourself, because it seems like that's really where your heart was, right? It was in those products and that collection of products. And again, don't try and sell like everything on the internet to do with like infants and babies. Sell what you recommend on those product pages. Tell them the products that you actually recommend, you have used and you love, or you've heard people love this, and make that description really you, and people will buy it.
Well, I think that's good. I was very, very quick to knock the whole shop on the head, and to just get rid of it and think, right, that was just a great example of how to spend money and get money back in and effectively just cover the costs. The other thing as well with my site as it stands at the moment is I don't think for a moment that I'm utilizing my homepage at all. It's a relatively new, it's about 6-month-old domain. So I've worked quite hard to try and, build a bit of domain authority with it and stuff like that. Still lots to go, but I'm sure I shouldn't just be using the homepage for, the name of the business, the brand name. Surely it's got to be used for something else.
I love this question, because I'm literally having this conversation with a couple of other brands at work at the moment about, well, should my brand be kids clothes or indoor plants or dog food? You're like, no. You want your brand and your homepage to appear for your brand keyword. The best thing you can do, especially when you're tracking SEO success over time, is chop up your metrics. You want to be tracking your brand traffic separately, your generic traffic separately, and sometimes, depending on what you're selling, you've got product as well, because they could have names that aren't quite generic, aren't quite brand. And they all react differently to different activity. When you're trying to rank for generics, you do all those things that good SEOs do. We create good content, we optimize it. When you're trying to push brand, it's not SEO so much anymore, but brand search volume has been suggested that it's a ranking factor. So your brand search volume is just as important as any other thing. So you want to optimize your brand by doing traditional marketing things like being part of a community. You could set up a profile that's on some of these parenting talks and just give advice on your expertise. You could do leafleting. You could do all of these old school like marketing techniques to make people aware of your brand. And that is the role of the homepage. It should rank for your brand. It should have links into your best products, your best pages. But yeah, I wouldn't try and make your homepage do the job of a generic pillar page. Right.
Okay. That sounds like good advice. It's been kind of playing on my mind for quite some time as to what I should and shouldn't be doing with that. And I guess we've got quite a few articles on there now, so we're getting the word count's going up a little bit. What should I do as far as perhaps potentially, you said about the pillar and the sort of content. What should I be potentially looking at adding, sort of bolstering articles and things like that? How should I go about researching that?
I think that's a really good place to start, because you've got a lot of content on your site already. So maybe just kind of piling them up together and going, okay, I could create a whole section here on Moses baskets. I've got my top 10, I've got an opinion piece, I've got some stats and some data from this, and you can create that kind of pillar and cluster area. Or you might want to go broader and just do like child's bedding and all of these other things. You could even just do a cluster and pillar around top 10s, since they do really well. But it's just thinking about, again, what you choose to be your pillars will be tied into what your USP is as a business, because you want the authority to drive into those central hubs.
Perfect. Thank you. Really appreciate that. That's my questions.
Great. With 47 seconds to go, Paul. Good job. But I actually have a question now, because this is so interesting. So when you're talking about defining your USP, your unique selling proposition page, and I think this particularly plays into Paul's niche, where it is actually very, very not saturated, but it's very competitive, right? The parenting space. Where does knowing your audience come into play? Like developing audience personas or something like that. How does that come into play when you're thinking about, I think particularly in such a competitive field when you're targeting parents, which is covers a lot of ground there. Like where does knowing or audience personas play into that?
Yeah, really, really good question. Really good question, because we're really lucky in SEO because our audience is self-identifying. They type in the query that they want and we give it to them.
True. I've always said keyword research is people research, because you are literally in their heads.
Yeah, they have literally told us what they want and we need to be there. Like that's the best field of marketing to possibly be in. But knowing your audiences will help with that keyword research, because you'll get into their heads. You'll kind of think about, okay, they're not just searching for this, they're searching for that because of these reasons. And that's how you're going to get that kind of niche keyword research rather than going after those broader generics. So yeah, really good point, Diana.
Well, I also think it'll help too in defining synonyms, because we live in a world of synonyms, right? And if you understand who that audience is, whether they're calling it a crib or a bassinet or calling it this or that. And then that informs your pillar content topics and your keyword research. So yeah, I was interested to hear your take on such a competitive, kind of universal niche that Paul is in. So thank you for that. Okay, I'll stop talking now. All right, I'm going to hand the talking time over to Steve.
Great, thanks, Diana. So I guess my questions are a little bit more technical. I guess my background's in front end development. So I log into SEMrush and I see a bunch of errors and warnings on our site audit, and I'm like, I get sad. So my first question is about toxic backlinks. We see a lot of backlinks coming in. Most of them are kind of trying to pull our images from our WordPress site and using them on toxic domains. We do some disavow things, but my question is basically, how much do toxic backlinks hurt your ranking versus how much a good authority backlink helps your ranking? And do you have any tips or tricks on how to manage those backlinks, those toxic ones, and prevent them if possible?
Yeah, really, really good question. I really like this one. I often find that a little bit of SEO knowledge can be dangerous. In this case, I think trying to block those images because you can see that people are linking to them has actually negatively affected you rather than positively affected you. Put my teeth back in. You never want to really be blocking sites from crawling your site. You want them to see everything. You've got your disavow there for a reason. And Google, I don't know of anyone that's been penalized from a backlink building for a long time, because you really have to be doing it. Like you've got to be going out there building those links, or someone's going to be doing negative SEO for you. For Google to even take notice, we all have bad backlinks. I think you guys might not know, but I'm sure people in the chat, hands up if you've got a link from the Globe. Like everybody does. It's just this horrible directory that exists, and you're like, oh well, they launched 5 new subdomains this week, I guess we'll add them to the disavow. But Google's not going to penalize you for this stuff. It knows that these websites exist. It doesn't like them. You telling Google that you've popped them in your disavow is enough to say, I'm not building these myself. They're just appearing and I don't like them. And Google will just go, cool, don't worry about it. Good
to know. So then the other question I had was about like the site errors that we're seeing in the site audit, and like a couple hundred errors, a lot of warnings showing up, and we just don't have the manpower, the time to kind of go through every week and try to fix these to get those down. So like what technical SEO problems on site should we be focusing on if we can only hit a few each week? And how much do those actually affect your ranking too?
Yeah, health is definitely a ranking factor. Like it's something that can quickly get out of hand as well. So I'd say the first thing you want to do is find out how many new things are breaking each week or each day. If someone's breaking your site regularly, they don't get access anymore. They're not allowed to go and publish content, because the first thing we need to do is stop making more errors. I notice it a lot with publishers, and the finance sector is very close to my heart. I've got a lot of I love that. It's a complicated sector, but I love being in it. But people don't hyperlink properly when they publish content all the time, and it's just something that's so easy to miss. So I think the first thing you want to do is make sure that nothing new is appearing and that people are properly trained to avoid making those mistakes. The next thing you want to do is prioritize what your issues are. Broken links and broken content is going to be the first thing. If you're going missing meta descriptions, they're overwritten 80% of the time anyway. So like, get your list of things and try and prioritize out what you need to fix, and then just try and chip away at it, starting with those broken links. I think you mentioned structured data potentially. If you have incorrect structured data, that could potentially stop you appearing in things like Google News or Google Discover. So as a publisher, you want to make sure that those are fixed as well.
Okay, good. Thank you. Another question was about the kind of URL structure that we're using. We basically just do our domain / and then the article, URL. So one question is, how important is it to get kind of a keyword you're targeting in your URL? Is that important? Is the length of your URL that important? Too short, too long? Does that really play a factor? And then is it important to try to get like categories and directories and stuff in front of your article to add kind of more keywords to your overall URL?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about having keywords in your URL. Your URL should be user-friendly. There's a nice, I would say, hack. Bit of advice for keeping your URL shorter is if it's nested within categories. I think one of the examples you gave was like trainers and then like blue trainers. You don't need to repeat the same keyword if it's in the earlier category. So that's a nice way of cutting stuff out. But yeah, as a publisher, I think you automate a lot of those URLs based on the title. So you've got things like filler words, A's and the's and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But just keep it really user-friendly. Like, you want that URL to correctly describe what's going to be on that page, but not detract from anything else that's going to be important. You just want to be able to go, that's the article about that.
So having a keyword in the URL is not so much a big deal.
No, it's not something that I would agonize over compared to like good on-site optimization, nice bit of site structure. So if you're going after like one keyword, making sure that you're not just producing one piece of content to go after that. Sometimes if it's quite a competitive piece of content, you might need, again, that pillar and cluster technique to push that forward, to kind of supercharge your one piece of content with cluster content, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So talking about content then, this is kind of, I've always wondered, when you're thinking about something to create an article or piece of content to write, is it better to kind of look what people are searching for, find that piece of content and try to write that? Or do you just write what you're expert at and then try to find a keyword that fits that's also being searched? Like what do you see is the best way to go about that?
Yeah, really good question. I think we briefly touched on this before about the blog and the resources sections on websites. So you kind of want to do both. So your evergreen resources, ideally you want to write them because there is a need for that. There's people searching for that question. You want to produce that content. But you should definitely also produce content just because it's really important. And there might not be any search volume around it because it might be too new. It might be something that's really important right now, and you should talk about it because, again, you're the expert on that field. I wouldn't try and cram keywords into that kind of content. I think mentally separate them so that blog and that timely content it's just there because you're an expert. It's really good for like social channels as well. Like if you're pushing out that kind of timely content, it's much better to have KPIs for that are around like social engagement and just expertise, and then link all that through to the pillar content around that theme.
Makes sense. Are we good on time, Diana? Okay. So I know a a little bit ago, you mentioned like the answer box on Google search results and the people also ask kind of thing. Are there any things we should be doing to try to intentionally get into those areas? Are there any tips and tricks we can to get in there?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't like to say I'm a SERP features expert, but I've published a few pieces of content around SERP features.
Maybe one or two.
Maybe one or two. There's a really handy glossary on the Roast website around the 40 plus different SERP features that appear right now. But yeah, absolutely. The PAAs, I think I mentioned it briefly. You can use the actual PAA question as a header in content, particularly like that evergreen content is always better for SEO optimization because it's evergreen. Same for featured snippets and answer boxes. So if it's a PAA, it's probably also an answer box, but on that query. So again, just using things like question answer schema can be quite helpful. You've got to make sure you use the right tool though. So there's 2 tools for checking structured data for question answer. Question answer won't show up in the newer rich snippet one because it doesn't actually trigger anything. It's just a helpful way. But if you use the structured data testing tool, and I will make sure I go back and find the links to both of those things and put them in the chat at some point, or Alina might, then that will tell you that your structured data is valid. And it's just a nice way of helping Google understand that that is a question, that is an answer. The next thing you can do, and my absolute favorite SERP feature, is FAQs drop downs. You can use that question answer and then just wrap it in FAQ page, and then suddenly your SERP is like 2 to 3 times the size of everybody else's, and it's just really big. And again, SEO is not that hard. Make your listing like really big and colorful, and more people will click on it. Be higher up the page, and more people will click on it. I mean, it's easier said than done,
right?
But yeah, absolutely. There's loads of SERP features you can go after, particularly in your sector, making sure that you're set up to be a news publisher and appearing on things like Google News and Google Discover.
Great.
Was that quick enough, Diana?
That was beautiful.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you very much.
I am with Paige on this, and I'm obsessed with SERP features right now. And especially as we see Google evolving into like this zero position, this zero click kind of atmosphere where Google wants to be the answer to everything. SEO has turned into more than just ranking number 1, 2, or 3, or ranking on the first page. It's now getting into those extra positions and really getting a position on the page. It's like way more than just the traditional rankings now. And I've been following Paige and her articles on SERP features, but talking a lot about it too. And just because I think it's such a great place for opportunity for websites, especially if the SEO piece is still gaining momentum and you're on page 2 or 3, like optimizing for these SERP features is a really great way to get your presence known while the rest of it is still building up momentum. So yeah, I'm so obsessed with it right now. So I do have a quick question from the chat that I wanted to run past you before we hand it over to David. So Dylan was asking, what is your strategy to stakeholders to justify ROI for creating evergreen content that can be more informative versus lead gen?
Interesting. So ROI is always a tricky one with SEO.
Yes.
So I think what you have to kind of take a step back, and if you're doing something like projections, you're not going to be ranking for the broader stuff if you don't do like the groundwork to get you there. Like you can't just produce a page that talks about mortgages and expect to jump to the top of the results. You absolutely have to be doing your due diligence, becoming that expert in that field, producing more than one piece of content to make sure that you can appear there. So it's a supportive role that you are informative. And of course, if it's good and it ranks well, you'll get traffic, even if it doesn't get leads. So maybe there's something with your channel friends as well that could maybe target them later on to get some display going on even. But yeah, ROI is a tricky one with SEO, but
yeah,
I just think it's the overall effect, isn't it? When you're looking at SEO, it's no one thing that's going to move the dial. It's lots of things.
Well, but one thing that's going to move the dial is connecting with people. And I think that the informative content has a strong role in building relationships. So if someone is Googling, how do I keep my baby quiet because they're in like a stressful situation, and you have this nice informative piece on like tried and true strategies on that. Okay, you just like were there during my time of need, and now I'm going to trust you even more. So I'm going to come back to you for more and more information, which can then turn into a lead. So I think that informative content is like relationship building content too.
And also lead gen content probably isn't going to rank. If you're trying to optimize for something, but all you tell me about is how good your product is.
Yeah. For sale or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Buy this, buy that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're competing for all of those pieces too. So, all right. Great question, Dylan. I hope that was a good answer for you. And I'm going to put 10 minutes on the clock for David.
Hello. Thank you. So, where to start? Maybe I will start my first question by asking Paige, where will you start? What will you do if you are hired to change the website?
Wow. Yeah, so first of all, I'm already happy that your navigation has changed since the first time I looked at the site to now, because I think it was icons when I looked and now it's words. And that was going to be the first thing that I picked up. And I was like, get that changed. That is bad.
It was a big try.
I think first of all, I want to commend you on your Google My Business, because you appreciate that you're a local business. And your Google My Business profile is really good. I can see that across a lot of the keywords that you supplied, that you are appearing in that map pack, which is really important for the intent and for the users that you're getting. So kudos on that. You are linking to social profiles that haven't been updated since December, but because there's a pandemic on, I will let you off. But that can be quite a turn off for people to continue that booking process if they've gone through and they've not really seen anything.
Right.
But the website is what lets you down massively compared to everything else. I think there's a huge amount of content that you could be building. So even just looking at like the Kinder massage page, you click on that page, you've got a secondary nav of links. Most of them don't work. The one that does work, when you click on it, you can't then get back. So that for I can see you making notes. This is good.
Right.
And content. So especially like that Kinder massage page, tell me about it. Tell me what it is. Why is it beneficial? Why should I take my kid to get a massage? What's going to make, particularly with kids as well, what's going to make that parent want to A, pay you, and B, trust you to do that with your child? Like, talk about the benefits of it, why you should do it, why does anyone do it? And look for those query questions around the internet to build out that content. What are the questions people are asking? That was quite a lot. That wasn't the first.
No, that's what I'm looking for.
Trying not to be mean.
Thank you. Yes. As you said, my Google My Business is done properly, and I'm also checking a lot on the local keywords, and this works well. We have a shop, so I work around that. We are, even for high volume keywords, mostly on the first page. My question is how on low volume keyword, to make an easy target, how on low volume keyword become number one against my competitor?
Cool. Yeah, I remember seeing this. So I think I had 3 questions to counter that question, which is classic SEO. Are these keywords relevant to your business? Are they likely to convert to a sale or sign up? And is there any search volume? Like you've said, they're low search volume, but is there any? Are they worth going after? And then if the answer to all of those questions is yes, then do you have the content to rank there? What are the top 3 or 4 pages doing to appear as high as they are? Do you have the content to appear there? Again, all you guys can do this. Just search for the query. Who are the top 3? Can you compete against them? Sometimes, Paul, the answer is no. Maybe we have to abandon this keyword because it's just too competitive, unfortunately. But if you can, if these are people that are very much like you, like if they're your local competition, what do they have that's better than yours? And how can you create similar content? If you have the exact same content, or not the exact same, because that would be stealing, but if you have similar and good content, maybe they're getting more traction from other websites. Maybe they're getting more links into that page. And that's why that's outperforming you.
Okay. So you mean backlinking?
Both internal and external. So a good architecture is always really important to drive authority. So like that your nav is now words rather than pictures. If you had your Kinder massage page in the top nav, you're telling Google that that's really important to you and you care about that page. So then you have a link throughout your site. But also, yes, backlinks. If you are producing content that people care about and that's interesting, you should get links from other people, which are signs of trust and signs of authority from Google. So they do help, but you shouldn't build them unnaturally.
All right. Thanks a lot. This is what I'm working on, actually, the content. And just to answer you, my big problem is that I don't speak properly German, and it's all a German business. And this is why
very good English.
Technically the website is okay. It's more about content. I had another question about Flashking-Kite. I heard that this is quite new. We have to build the website to be readable. I'm working with a friend who is helping me to create German content. We are also working for massager with products like oil. When we use scientific keywords, it is impossible to translate paraben, petrol into any. We get just minus 300 points every time we go through the machine, the calculating machine. Some other keywords are okay, but how does this Flashking-Kite impact negatively the content and the results? So
the fact that you can't translate your content, is that the issue?
No, the Flashking-Kite is now this new formula where they say that Google is checking for how readable. I think SEMrush have this check also on the analysis, and if you use too many words on a sentence, if you use too much adult words or too much scientific words, it's like not easily readable for a majority of the population. So of course, if it's more readable for people, it's more readable for the computer, and you score. Is this real? Is this gossip? What is your?
I completely understand. So I think always think about what content you need to have for your user on that page. Like if it has to be scientific, it has to be scientific. Like I imagine some of the content that Steve's publishing on his financial website, I'm gonna not understand half of what it is, but your users understand it and Google will understand it because it has to fit the brief of those users. So I think, yes, like write content to be understood. You want it to be a good reading level so that it's not inaccessible to people, especially when you're trying to sell something. You don't want to make it too confusing for them. But if you're creating content around a product, then you're going to have to include the ingredients list. So I would take metrics like that with a pinch of salt. And if you understand it and maybe get some friends and family to read it as well and go, do you understand this? Then that's a nice, easy way of just going, okay, it should be fine then.
All right. So it has to make sense, like always.
Yeah. Write content for users. If you think your users will understand it, then the rest should follow. There's a big asterisk over that should.
Diana, where are we on the? So okay, then maybe my last question: Would you would you work on driving keywords or looking for keywords nationally? I mean, we have one shop, but of course we can extend the area, looking for more customers. There is, of course, quickly more competitors because there are a lot of shops. I'm really bad on a national level for keywords compared to local keywords. How to win that level? Is it about the page trust, the page ranking, more backlinks? Sorry if we cannot say that. Do we have to pay Facebook? Do we have to pay everybody? How does it work?
So if you wanted to go international and go and just target that broader remit,
right?
I think the first question you have to ask yourself is that valuable? How many people are going to drive to your area if you do target nationally? If it's loads, great, crack on. You are going to struggle if you're trying to do an international website with a .ch domain. You're going to need something like a .com and start doing proper international subfolder structures or subdomains or whatever it is you want to do, CCTLDs or whatnot, to target different countries. But I think language is potentially the biggest issue because it's German and French, isn't it? Both spoken in Switzerland, sorry?
Yeah, we speak 4 languages here. So this is, of course, a next step to translate, to drive quickly traffic, as the competitors don't, to translate their website. I just want to first make it working properly before to translate. And just before to go internationally, really nationally, as you said, is it worth it to gain a broader population? I'm sure. I mean, if I can ask you the question, if you really love this special coffee or drink, will you drive to get it? I'm sure you will. So I'm sure people will come to our area because we are the best. Now, is it really worth it to run after this?
Do you know what? I think what I would advise is that you focus more on your brand traffic for that kind of thing, because you do rank really well locally, but maybe it's more about people understanding your brand. I think one of the questions you had was about one of your competitors having 80K traffic versus your 30K, right, and understanding if that is potentially a branded traffic for them as opposed to you. That is a very different set of activity because you do rank well in your local area and you do appear in that map pack. So maybe it's not your generics that are holding you back. Potentially it's your brand traffic. So boosting that up, again, with those really like traditional techniques, leafleting, sponsorship of local events, all that stuff that goes, I am the massage person in this area. You should travel to me because I am amazing.
All right. So branding. I don't know why I didn't ask this question, but of course, this is making a lot of sense.
Good.
It's funny that you say that, David, because there are a lot of concepts about SEO that you kind of have to hear it a different way. And then you're like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, right for my audience. Okay, that totally makes sense. But when I think there's so much chatter about SEO in general that sometimes it gets cluttered and you just have to hear it in Paige's lovely voice to like let it like sink in. Okay, so we do have a few more minutes. So I wanted to circle back to Yura. Yura, I know you had one more question that you wanted to ask Paige. You can unmute yourself.
That's what I've
There
done.
you are.
Yeah, thanks. So one more question concerning link building. So Paige, what is your opinion? What's link building compared to value, like user intent and content value? What plays more role? If I have, for example, like almost the same, not copy pasting content from the competitors, but almost the same content, and I'm ranking higher than my competitor because I have more links, for example, but my content is a little bit weaker, or there are some other reasons.
Oh, this is totally definitely a depends answer, but yeah, linking is really important. the whole concept should be, if you build it and it's good, they will come. Like the links will come because you've created good content. I think I mentioned data hooks to you. I can't remember if it was before the call or on the call. But having a nice data hook means that the press might care. And having a little bit of primary information means that you can outreach that, create a story, create something interesting, and people want to link to you. Paul, for example, I saw that your domain authority is 1 for your website. So creating content that people want to link to is really going to help your website. And it's not about buying links. It's about creating content that people care enough to link to. So I'd absolutely say that it's good. Also, just a caveat, DA is not a ranking factor. I know I mentioned it there. Domain authority is a MOS metric, but it's a helpful metric just to get an idea of if your content is perfect and their content is perfect and they're outranking you and you have a DA of 1 and they have a DA of 20, that's probably why. So we need to invest in some content marketing, get some really interesting content out there that people want to share, that want to link to, and that makes you important.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Thanks.
No worries.
Good question. And I have another question too. It was in the chat, and I believe Alessa already addressed it in the chat, but I want to get your take on it too, Paige. Going back to SERP features. So ASU Online asked, with SERP features engaging people in the SERP, how do you measure efficacy? How do you measure that effectiveness, since they may be less likely to click through to your website?
Really, really good question. And I think it's something that's been terrifying the SEO industry for ages.
Well, and like you said before, like ROI is already so hard to track. So now we've got like 0-click results into it.
And this is kind of why I love the finance sector and why I have a lot of like finance and B2B clients, because there is no way you can address the entire query in a feature snippet, because they're often just too complicated that you're going to have to click through. So it is a valuable asset. The other thing that I talked about at Brighton SEO around FAQs and answering questions in the SERP. If your competitor answers that question and you didn't because you thought, well, that's why they come to my website, so why would I answer it in the SERP? If your competitor does it, they've ruined it for all of you. That's the entire SERP gone and no one's clicking. So you might as well jump on the bandwagon and have a nice fat FAQs as well and try and entice them with something else that's going to get that click. I think it's always thinking that step ahead. Like you might want to be visible for that 0-click search. But
I think that's part of branding, right? I mean, that is part of a brand strategy, and maybe not necessarily an SEO strategy, because of that. There's an interaction that's happening, but it's not a click. It's not that measurable necessarily action that's happening, but there's an interaction happening. And that's just as important. And so you almost have to think of it as like brand awareness, I think.
Yeah, like the insurance sector, pretty much any insurance keyword you'll search in the UK, you'll have your top 3 comparison sites.
Yeah.
And if suddenly someone was position 1 on a lot of those, but wasn't getting that click, you're still getting that brand recognition. You're still getting people go, oh, okay.
I've seen that before.
I've seen them.
Yes. So then back to the question too, like how do we measure our visibility there?
Well, I'm sure you'll say SEMrush, but I have a nifty tool that I use called Myposio, which does pixel ranking. So I will measure the actual pixels on the page of how many I'm taking up and how far I am on that page. Am I even above the fold? A lot of what we'll see, I think I was helping one of my AMs out with this literally today, was, yeah, you're in position 1 for everything, great, but you're below the fold for all of these keywords because of 4 to 5 paid ads.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Maybe that's a little tee up to the paid team that they need to be investing in some, as much as I hate it, and I'm not SEO only. Sometimes paid has a place.
I think they work well as a team.
Exactly. And that's all about visibility, right?
Yes.
This is my SERP. This is what it looks like. My favorite thing about the tools that I use is that I will get a screenshot of that SERP as well. So if you go, why is that changed? You can physically look at it, that screenshot from 3 days ago, and go, oh, there's this huge pop-up or something that's happened and that disappeared after a day. But it's so important to not be blinkered by rankings because they only tell such a small part of the story.
Yeah, and I like the idea about the screenshot because that is a communication device. So if you're getting questions from your higher ups or from your clients, you now have visible, tangible something that you can show, like this is progress, this is what's changed, and you're not just kind of using the SEO jargon to try and re-explain. You can visually show that. So keep that in mind if you're trying to explain changes in SERP and SERP features, that visuals help a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Could you mention that tool one more time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it was MyPosio. They're a French tool. I'll grab the link and put it in the chat.
Cool.
Very cool. That's awesome. And I think we could talk all day long because that was amazing. But we're at our hour mark. So I want to say a huge thank you to our guests today for your thoughtful questions. Best of luck with your websites, you guys, and your businesses going forward. I hope you can move forward and make some of these really practical tactics that Paige has talked about. I also do want to thank Alessa for her quick responses to the questions in the chat. She was on fire over there. Wow. If you get a second, if you want to rewatch this video, which I will be doing, read through the questions in the chat. They were tremendous questions and her responses were amazing. And you can definitely tell she is experienced. She had great answers.
So power today.
Yeah, go Powell today, yes. And of course, a round of applause for our special guest today, Paige, for sharing such detailed insights.
Thanks a lot.
I'm really wondering how we can repurpose all of your tips into infographics to share on social media now. That's what's running through my head. So from all of us here at SEMrush, we're wishing you and your friends success and good health. Follow us on social media. We're SEMrush everywhere for more tips and webinar announcements. Have an awesome week and bye for now.